Hey guys, it's Christy. So am I live? Let's find out. I've got on the screen the live stream, and it's telling me I've been live for 4 minutes. No, it's not streaming, is it? I can see it, and I know that I'm lagged, but I know I'm not lagged that much. So yeah, I am broadcasting right now, and I don't think you guys can see it. Oh, finally, there it is. Okay, guys, this is a nightmare. I've told you multiple times how bad this is. It's so bad dealing with this. See if I can give you an example. Trying to find the right screen. I think I have to use a happy hour. But yeah, so now there's this new interface where you have to take your stream key and put it over into OBS, and then you have to paste it in, and you have to apply it, and then you have to go live here, but that doesn't actually make you go live. That just connects your stream. But when I tried to reconnect my stream, it was defaulting to the last hangout I did on the Monster Fash. For some reason, that one is like linked in my connections permanently. It's so frustrating and complicated. There's so many different pieces of the YouTube software and the OBS software, and there's no instruction guide on how to put them together. You just have to do it by trial by error. So please do not give me crap about trying to come live. I know it's a whole boomer thing. Oh, it's so funny. It's seriously frustrating, and I'm not finding it funny. It's a struggle every week to go live, and it makes it really not fun. Okay. I am just not, this is not the energy I want to start the show. So again, just like last week, let's reset. Volume's a bit low. Okay, I can turn my volume up a bit. I'm trying not to scream down the mic. Yeah, it could be worse. Kevin could be using Steam Power. Well, the problem with Kevin's stuff is not necessarily his technical inabilities. It's that he doesn't have good bandwidth. And there's literally nothing he can do about it, because if his neighbors start streaming a lot of stuff while he's going live, his bandwidth starts to crap out. And it has nothing to do with like his technical abilities. So we're all struggling here. How was your week, everyone? Am I still a little bit soft? Hopefully not. I look a little bit more in the green now. So, yeah, I had a whole show, like fun things, energy planned, and I've literally spent the last half hour I even set this up yesterday and tested it to make sure it worked, so I would have a smooth launch today. Anyway, skip all this crap. Let's talk a little bit before we go into a PragerU stuff. Let's talk a little bit about bookmarks, and let me transition, because you can't see me now. You can just see my other interface. Oh, that's not also the one I wanted either. So let me get to the right screen that I wanted. And I've got the way I have this one set up is you won't be able to see me either. So let me, God. So I ended up spending the time I thought I would spend on, like chasing things up instead on actually just trying to go live. Not fun. Not fun, guys. This is just, yeah, not fun anymore. Anyway, transitioning over to my bookmarks. I've been looking at the news today, and there has been some interesting developments with the British election. So as you guys might know from the happy hour, we've got some, there was if you were following the happy hour, you'll know, they called a general election in the UK for the 12th of December. Before I start that, I see a question from 250 in the chat. When are you and Tom going to do that stream when you break down the PragerU anti-evolution vid? That will be the next patron hangout. Tom's already sent me information on like a link for it. I can also see myself. I'm going to just pause my own stream now that I know it's working. Yeah, we're going to do it at the next patron hangout. So it would be really fun if we could, yeah, like sort of like as a patron hangout thing, do a video, because I mean I like my patron hangouts, but they're also very unstructured. So I feel like there would be of wider interest to people if they were more focused on something that wouldn't just involve the people in the hangout. So I'm encouraging that. But yeah, so I of course save bookmarks, because that's what I do. I'm a geek in that way. I have a continual and ongoing obsession with polling. And as a consequence, I'm just going to move myself over a little so you can see. Yeah, I was just tagging in these most recent... Should I pull the mic a bit closer? Is that better? be a bit more intimate with our conversations. And then I'll scream down your ear, so you'll have to check that. I do seem a little bit quiet today, don't I? Alright, I'm going to go ahead and whack my volume right the way up. It might just be because I'm, woke up and haven't spoken a lot today. Anyway, looking ahead to the Westminster elections. There is not good news on the horizon for Labour. I'm sorry, but it just... I don't quite... I mean, at this point, I would be surprised if there was a hung parliament. And maybe some other people who can give me information on, marginal districts and where there's enough of them. But honestly, I'm gonna be honest. Oh, here's a problem. Hold on. Let me mute my mic. I'm gonna point it at my face. How about that? You see it here? It's kind of like pointed at the side. But I won't... I'll mute it first. I didn't even mute it. I'm sorry, guys. You were meant to hear that. Oh, yeah. I'm definitely louder now that I'm actually speaking to the mic. I've got it in front of my face. All right. These numbers are terrible for Labour. I'm sorry, but if you're a Labour supporter, they're just going to get blown out. I don't know how... with these numbers, I should try Lightstream or Slobs. Honestly, I can't be bothered to learn another software at this point. I can't. It's too much time and effort. I won't. I mean, thanks for the offer, but I can't do another start from zero and go all the way up on a streaming software. I'm too invested in this now. It's a sunk cost. All of the polls look to be kind of, producing the same results, and they're also producing the same results after the election was announced. I know Kevin's polling predictions tend to lead with his heart. When I give him real data, it depresses him, and I'm sorry, but I don't see a hung parliament in this. I don't see a hung parliament in these numbers. So we've got Conservatives on 39%. These are YouGov numbers. Lab on 27, Lib Dems on 16, Brexit Party on 7. And very similarly, the Delta, is that what this is? Yeah. Delta poll, UK, puts Cons at 40%, Labour at 28, Lib Dems at 14, and Brexit at 11. So, yeah, I don't fear... these numbers will not produce a hung parliament. I can tell you. if the Conservatives are getting 40% of the vote and Brexit Party is getting between 7 and 11, I don't... and the Brexit Party can only play in certain areas. This is going to be we'll see how it goes. We'll see what happens. I mean, you have elections for a reason, and elections are about differences. But I'm going to tell you, from my focus groups last time, there's a reason why people didn't feel confident, and this isn't Labour voters. I'm sorry, Labour voters, this is going to be painful for you to hear. But it is the truth. Lots of people don't like Jeremy Corbyn. Lots of people don't like Jeremy Corbyn, and they can't stand him. Now, I know lots of people don't like Boris Johnson either, but 40% of people are willing to vote for him, unlike the Labour leader. So I think you guys are going to have an uphill battle to... It might be the end of Jeremy Corbyn, this election. I don't know why Labour has ever been so eager. I mean, maybe there are better polling numbers, but honestly, 40% to 27, 40% to, or 39, 27, 40, 28, there's no way Labour's going to lead a government with those numbers. So why do the Brits keep voting for these assholes? Why do all countries end up voting? I mean, Mariana, you got the Conservatives in Germany. Of course, they're not as the kind of assholes you have in Britain. And you've got people voting for, Republicans in the States, mass areas. Why do people vote for Conservatives? That's a good question. And we can get into the political psychology. Can I just be a complete academic and say, for lots of reasons. People vote because of identity. People vote because, in terms of they've always voted for that party, so they kind of, feel like there's a bit of a loyalty there or attachment. Maybe they're socialized. It might be that they're highly religious. And this is the thing, I get in America, you can use religiosity to explain a lot of the Republican support. You've got an entire, about 40% of the country there that isn't interested in the rule of law. They are theocrats. And they're willing to excuse the politics of anyone who helps them achieve their political goals. They're not moral. So they'll vote for that in order to preserve their white supremacist power structure and to try to control women's bodies and people's lives and black people and, you know, protect their wealth. You know, in Britain, there's just like most of the conservative support. I'm not saying there isn't conservative support outside of England, but the core of the Tory support really is from England. And that's, you know, it's very inward, sort of self-absorbed, Westminster focused, not thinking about Scotland, not thinking about Wales, not thinking about Northern Ireland other than when it comes up. Certainly not in terms of their vote calculations. You know, Englanders tend to associate, and I can tell you this from my focus group research, England with Britain. And so they think that their English concerns are British concerns. There's no differentiation there. Whereas Scottish, do I want Labour to win? It doesn't really matter who I want to win. I mean, I'd be fine with a Labour government, you know, I would be fine, but it doesn't really matter who I want to win. I'm just telling you the numbers, and the numbers are depressing. Yeah. Oh, and yeah, speaking of, I don't know if you guys are interested in this at all. I'm going to talk a little bit about my study. So don't even think about the north of England. Yeah, I know that's been traditionally kind of a Labour area, and that's where, when Labour was doing well, there in Scotland was where they were, you know, like there was a pretty deep Labour base, but now SNP is encroached on that Scottish territory by being more left than Tony Blair was, and then you've got on the right, you've got the Brexit Party, the old UKIP party, squeezing Labour from the populist, anti-internationalist, xenophobic, more bigoted, racist, anti-immigration part of the Labour Party, which is a big part of the Labour Party for a long time. But they just picked their class over their racism, but then their class alignment started to decay. So now they're more, well, xenophobic, shall we say. Yeah, all right. So that's not good news. If you are a Labour supporter or if you are a Remainer, these are, I'm not optimistic about these numbers. Maybe someone else will correct me with a different take on a distribution for those, but also this is just funny. Sorry, because Andy No is such a whiny POS. This apparently was broadcasted. If you remember from the happy hour that we did with Kevin, I don't know if we actually displayed it because who knows what Kevin has on camera at any given time. But this was the hand-scrolled note that Andy No whined about on Twitter. Ooh, and everyone made fun of him for even pointing it out. And so apparently, according to this tweet, this was at an event where Andy No was speaking, and they apparently put it on the building next to or where he was speaking, which is really great. Now, interestingly enough, I don't think we'll see. If we actually had a result where there could be a second referendum, in terms of the most recent polling, by the way, on UK Leave, Delta poll here shows that in terms of their aggregates, their poll of polls, 53% of the British population would vote to remain, 47% would vote to leave. But at the same time, you got Tory being the party that gets the most support. I can't make fun of this stuff, or make sense of this stuff. People internally, on the individual level, oftentimes don't have a consistent position. So when you try to do that with the aggregate and you try to get entire population to have some sort of consistent view, that's chilling at windmills. All right, I think that was about it for the bookmarks. I just wanted to point that out. Those couple things. If the Tories win, I'm moving back to Scotland. Yeah. Why do I feel like Andy No wrote that note himself? Yeah, that could be the case. I wouldn't be surprised if Andy No did that just to do some more victim grift, as it were. What else should we talk about before we swap over to PragerU? I think pretty much everything, you had the impeachment vote. That's proceeding apace. Still think we're going to be seeing articles of impeachment voted on before the end of the year. And it will be interesting. Maybe this is worth saying. I'm half-heartedly starting a campaign to get Ron Johnson of Wisconsin to recuse himself from the impeachment vote. So I don't know, it's 2/3 of the members, and, oh, this is what I want. Oh yeah, it is actually. And I think that Ron Johnson of Wisconsin needs to recuse himself because he's an eyewitness. And you can't be an eyewitness to a crime and also at the same time vote on it. So if you guys remember, Johnson was told by one of Trump's minions that he was blocking Ukraine's military aid in exchange for an investigation into the CrowdStrike conspiracy nonsense and the Biden conspiracy nonsense with Burisma. So yeah, I think we need to get a hashtag going of getting some of these people who are actually witnesses for the prosecution, as it were, to recuse themselves. I don't see how you can have some of these people who were participating in the crime, knowledge of it beforehand, voting to say the president is or isn't guilty. So I don't know if that's probably a fool's errand. It's probably pointless. But I actually do think that Ron Johnson should recuse himself. And again, I don't hear people saying the most obvious thing when it comes to Trump and his claims that he was only interested in corruption, which is, if he was so interested in corruption, then wouldn't he want to avoid the appearance of his own corruption by directly asking for something that could provide him with a benefit? And therefore he would hand it off to someone else to be the point person or to ask for it. But of course, he doesn't recuse himself or remove himself from that situation because he's a criminal. He's not interested in corruption, in stopping corruption as a general thing. He's just interested in using corruption to help himself. See, I tried to pause my video and it did not pause at all. Pause, Christy. I'm pausing myself. Why do people watch my show? I'm a little bit of a I'm a little bit of a getting to be like Kevin now. Like, why are you guys watching me natter on? I'm so technologically incompetent since the switch over. Although I'm getting better through mistakes. A friend I know is learning German, and I was encouraging him to make mistakes because it's through mistakes that you learn. And I do need to apply that to OBS. So what do you guys say in the chat? Pelosi's poor treatment of Katie Hill. Well, I don't think that Pelosi had a poor treatment of Katie Hill. I think there's a couple things that happened with the Katie Hill situation. First of all, she did have an inappropriate relationship. All right, so that is one thing. Like, we have to consider that. And I understand that the inappropriate relationship was, before she took office, and there wasn't one during, but I don't think it's fair to blame Nancy Pelosi when Katie Hill resigned. She didn't demand her resignation. They didn't throw her out. So consider that. Did I see Dennis Prager on Real Time? Oh my God. No. Annoying and cringy the way he bullied and lied. Of course, that doesn't surprise me at all, because he is a liar and he is a bully. Authoritarians and tyrant and pro-fash, like Dennis Prager, want to justify their policies in their own virtue and their rightness, not in rule of law or the common good. And I've given up on Bill Maher. I barely tolerated him before, but it really started to, I guess, culminate after he turned, when he turned 60. He's definitely becoming that, I think I'm a liberal, but really I'm a conservative kind of person. He thinks he's progressive. He thinks he's on the left. He's on the left for 1984. He's progressive for the 20th century. He is not a progressive, or, again, the word liberal in the United States has two meanings depending on what the speaker's intention is. Liberal can be liberal conservative, so in other words, left right. Or I tend to think of liberals as being more like a centrist, a left-leaning centrist, and then a progressive as someone who's actually to the left. So when he had Milo on and compared, he said he's reminded him of a young Christopher Hitchens. GTFO with that BS. Oh, please, just DTFO, Bill Maher. Milo is not anything like Hitchens. He can't write, he can't think, he can't reflect, he can't even admit he's wrong. Christopher Hitchens, and he had a lot of bad takes. Don't want to excuse his takes, but one thing I respect a lot is that he was going blah blah blah, waterboarding isn't torture, it's easy. In fact, let me show you. It's not torture by I will subject myself to it. And he did, and within less than a minute, he had completely changed his mind on whether or not it was torture. And if more conservatives did that, not waterboard themselves, although, I mean, if they want to do it as a sport, I'm not going to get in their way. But to just actually go into a situation and be willing to admit you're wrong. You know? And Milo would never even come near that because he comes from the Trump school and the Sargon school of it doesn't matter how wrong I am. Never admit I'm wrong. Never apologize. Never back down. Unless, you know, like, I think Carl had to apologize to, like, you know, Lush from Cardiff. When it was criminal procedures, it could be, you know, he could be seen as instigating and leading online harassment. So, you know, that's kind of when I broke with Bill Maher. I mean, I had, it was a loose break anyway. It was kind of like, it's more like ghosting someone and then just being like, nah, I actually don't want to get back in touch with them. Like a pain, and he's just gone downhill from there. I saw his anti-vaxxing nonsense. What the hell? You want to go around and talk about religious people going on faith and make fun of them and be Mr. Religious, ridiculous religious, all that kind of stuff. Oh, I'm such a rationalist. But I'm going to take anecdotal stories of people with a bias and from there make a medical declaration to my audience? F you, you irresponsible, arrogant, uninformed, danger to the public health. Seriously. STFU, Bill Maher. Also, I miss me with Bill Maher. He's put a fork in him. He's done. So, charging the protesters on the horseback from behind. Oh, I don't know what you guys are talking about there. Did I just say that Hitchens submitted himself to waterboarding? Oh, yeah. Did you guys not know this? Yeah, Hitchens, back in the day. I didn't realize this wasn't common knowledge. Yeah, he totally waterboarded himself and changed his mind on it for Vanity Fair. He wrote an entire article about how he, let's just, for FYI, if people didn't know this about Hitchens. This is his article from 2002. Sorry, let me move my mic a little bit here. No, I won't. 2008, sorry. Believe me, it's torture. No, I'm going to have to move my mic again. Sorry, everyone. What more can be added to the debate over U.S. interrogation methods and whether waterboarding is torture? Try first-hand experience. The author undergoes a controversial drowning technique at the hands of men who once trained America's soldiers to resist it, not inflict it. So there's Hitchens like being like, let me breathe, because it's torture. I guess this is I don't know if that little segment I just read above, it didn't sound like it was Hitchens' voice, but this would be in Hitchens' voice. Here is the most chilling way I can find of stating the matter. Until recently, waterboarding was something that Americans did to other Americans. It was inflicted and endured by those members of the Special Forces who underwent the advanced form of training known as SERE, Survival, Evasion, Resistance, Escape. In these harsh exercises, brave men and women were introduced to the sorts of barbarism that they might expect to meet at the hands of a lawless foe who has disregarded the Geneva Conventions. But it was something that Americans were being trained to resist, not inflict. Exploring this issue, this narrow but deep distinction on a gorgeous day last May, I found myself deep in the hills of western North Carolina, preparing to be surprised by a team of extremely hardened veterans who had confronted the country's enemies in the highly arduous training. Okay, Christopher Hitchens writes beautifully, but, well, he writes okay. I mean, I know people who really appreciate his prose. I have to say, I read God. What is that one that he wrote about God? Is it God is Dead or whatever? I wasn't moved by it, but I was already an atheist at the time, so it didn't have that profound effect on me because I'd thought of all the ideas or heard all the ideas he introduced. But, yada yada yada, safeguards, I got some sleep. There's a whole thing about his experience. And yeah, he changed his mind 180 degrees. Long story short, he was of the opinion it wasn't torture before he experienced it, and then he experienced it and said, yes, it's torture. So, if Bill Maher had half that integrity, I would be impressed. Again, I don't want to over-sanctify Hitchens. Hitchens had his own issues, and he was a man of his time and his class and his experiences being a part of the dominant power structure. But also credit where credit is due. He was able to admit where he was wrong, where he very publicly. Oh, shut up. Shut up. Playlist. That's what we were looking for. So yeah, I don't know if that was if that's of interest to you, but you can go read that Vanity Fair article. How are we doing in the chat, guys? Oh, hey, Sib Wolf. Good morning. By waterboarding, it is faux drowning. It is simulated drowning. Yes. By the way, Flint, waterboarding is simulated drowning. Looking for my name, looking for things you guys are gonna say. I have a reason to partially respect Hitchens again. Yeah, I agree. I mean, you don't have to make anyone into a saint 100% or a sinner. Although some make it easier than others, like Trump is obviously a sinner. And sorry to use a Christian dichotomy here. And framework, but it's alliterative and so therefore very pleasing. Saints and sinners. It's kind of nice to say. I wish he was still here to give his view of Trump and the implosion of the GOP. Yeah, I mean, him, Douglas Adams. I'd love to hear some of also Bill Hicks. I'd love to hear Bill Hicks. And you know what's sad about that is that I'm sure there are women from that era who I would like to hear from. I mean, the only woman from that era I can really think of who is still around these days is Roseanne Barr, and she's lost it. So, Sean, I agree he'd probably have little time for both parties, but I also think he would call out totalitarian tactics when he saw them because he had seen them, and he would not fear Donald Trump nor the scorn of his base because he wouldn't be economically beholden to them. Although at this point, I think Hitchens might be too centrist for even Sargon and Tim Pool. I think in some ways they prefer the idea of the man rather than having to actually experience the man himself, because I think he would have dragged them, and there are pseudo-intellectual crap all over. So let's see, peoples, what do we want to do for our Prager video? What time is it? I've been nattering like just on and on and on for a half an hour, and I'm thinking, I got my Mooka mug going on today. You want to see it? My beautiful mug. I'm thinking about making more coffee before we start this next thing because mine is getting cold now because we've been talking for half an hour. So there you go. Yeah, Mamuka. Where's the camera? There we go. I love the artwork on that, and the color is as well. It's just so beautiful. In fact, all right. A friend of mine got me like an Art Deco art therapy coloring book, and I think this though isn't like the Art Nouveau style. If I remember, I didn't do art history, but I would say this Art Deco art therapy coloring book. Freaking cool. You can't see the details on this. Maybe you can a little bit, but a lot of sort of Frank Lloyd Wright-ish looking sort of things. Oh, and I never turned my light on. Oh my god, I'm such a... All right, so let us pick the anti-pensions vid. Okay, we got one vote for anti-pensions. Oh yeah, we can't give people public services with their tax dollars because that will benefit them. All right, well, that's fine. I okay. What do other people think about? Yes, Hitchens would have thrashed Sargon. What do people bacteria to Beethoven? The bacteria to Beethoven one I'm going to do in the November patron hangout. Tom McDonald has a background in sort of biology, and he found some rebuttal information. So just hold on to the bacteria one until the November patron hangout, which will be on a Sunday in November. Picture of Ostara. I don't know who that is. All right, so far we've got a vote for the anti-pension video. Oh, you guys can't see it. No, sorry, I put that back to show you. God, I'm an idiot. Okay, here we go. So let us pick out a video. There we go. That's much better in terms of being seen. Although I'm in a weird spot now in that camera angle. I think, yeah, not having a good day. Boom. Oh, now you can see even less. Now the other one was way better. It was stupid, but better. I'll put myself in the other corner. Well, you know, you come for the amateur hour and you stay to laugh at it. So I've got a nomination for the pensions one. I will scroll down a little bit so you guys can see a few more options. You can see the ones we've done as well because they've got the red lines on them. Except for the PragerU versus YouTube. I only half watched that. Watched them one. True for you, but not for me. The Charlottesville lie. Don't want to. Alright, public pensions. Public pensions. People seem okay with public pensions. Now, again, I have not watched this, you can see. Well, it looks like I started it, but inadvertently. And we're just going to live check it. We're going to live fact check it. I don't know anything about the contents. But then again, here's the thing about a PragerU video. You don't actually need to know the topic that much because they don't actually deal with the topic. And the information they do put it in their videos, generally, if you look it up on Wikipedia, you find out it's a lie. So it should be fun. I'm going to suggest this. F this S. Yeah, this video might make it. We've been going half an hour. My coffee is cold. So shall we take a very quick, not like a 10-minute break, just a 5-minute break. And I will refresh my coffee. I will get this ready to go. And we will have a PragerU video after the 30-minute mark. I guess we're at 35-minute mark. So we'll reconvene like 41 past the hour. So 5 minutes from now. And yeah, go get on a cup of tea, go get a cup of coffee, go stretch your legs, whatever you need to do. I will put on the pre-show music and see you guys with a fresh cup of coffee in a few minutes. Bye-bye. Ooh, wrong one. Sorry. Fade the music out. Boom, boom, boom. Oh wait, the music stopped. Hey guys. And we're back. Are we back early or late? Oh, right on time. I can't tell. All right, I can't tell my left from my right. I have to look for the L almost every time, and I can't tell north from south or east to west. I have no sense of direction, but I do have a pretty good sense of like lengths of time. And I tend to wake up like 2 minutes before my alarm clock often. I don't know if anyone else is like that or if I'm just weird. I could be just weird. All right, now the thrill of the debunking. I want you guys to know that, you know, when we do these live things, if I haven't looked at it beforehand, which oftentimes I haven't, it is a bit of a thrill. Like, ooh, will they say something I can't debunk? Will they use facts that really challenge me? And every week, no. Every week it's like, I thought we were talking about topic B, but now you're talking about topic C, D, and E, which have nothing to do with the title of this video, or only very tangentially. So clarity of thought, not a strength of the PragerU content, in my opinion. Are we ready to go, guys? Are we ready to see? Oh, I've got to turn my desktop audio on this time. I have been protecting you from the nonsense that gets played here. But now it's time for you to hear the nonsense too. All right, I'm going to do a sound check first. So let's see how the audio is for you guys. A caution to those people wearing headphones. Maybe you just want to pull them out for a second in case. I think I've got it at a decent volume, but warning.
I want to talk to you about 3 words.
All right, that seems okay to me. And I'll give a few seconds for you guys in the chat to catch up, because I know from looking at my screen there's a delay. But if you want to let me know if you heard that okay and the sound is all right. Wake up 10 or 15 minutes before your alarm. Oh, that's amazing. That's nice. The day PragerU says something we can't debunk will be a sad day. Yeah, unless they say 2 + 2 = 4, which I'm not going to contest, because, you know, even a stop clock is wrong. Or right twice a day, as they say. But yeah, their narratives are flimsy at best. Okay, seems fine. Very good. All right, so we've got Mr. Another white guy. Right. So 3 words that should scare the heck out of you. All right, let's start with fear, because that's where PragerU always likes to start.
It should scare the heck out of you, especially if you're young.
Oh, okay, so this is going to be for we need a phrase for this type of audience. Maybe there is one, I'm just forgetting it. But there's like racer boys. It's this sort of stereotype of the kind of person, usually a guy, who will, you know, take his car out and drive it real fast in the weekend. Blah, blah, blah. Like, they are going for that sort of racer boy. Young Republicans, I guess. That's their audience, is the young Republicans.
Public pension liabilities.
All right, let's just find out what the real thing going on here is. Pension liabilities. What is that? What are pension liabilities? The difference between the total amount due a retiree and the actual amount of money the company has on hand. Right, so this is about fiscal mismanagement at the corporate level, not properly funding their employees' retirement or putting their funds for their employees' retirement into the stock market and gambling with it rather than managing it responsibly with long-term, safer things like bonds and whatnot. So, pension liabilities, the difference between, remember who this is, the total amount due retirees, and the actual amount of money the company has on hand. So I wonder if this also applies to the government? Ah, yes. Good to know. Unfunded liabilities are debt obligations that do not have sufficient funds set aside to pay the debt. These liabilities generally refer to debts of the U.S. government or pension plans, and their impact on savings, investing, and general economic health of a nation or corporation. can be negative and significant. All right, so now we know what we're talking about, which is the gap between what is promised to employees as a benefit that they have earned and are entitled to as in exchange for their labor, and what is actually being managed in terms of money on hand to fund those obligations. All right, I can hand that. 3 words that scare me is baby stand user? Oh, why? Baby stand user? I don't know what that means. Coffee shop conservative youth, yes. Oh, there's already a word for them, douchebags. Nice. I love my chat. I love the snark in my chat. You guys and I deserve each other.
Okay, I know you probably have about 100 things you're worried about, and public pension liabilities likely aren't one of them. But that's the reason this is.
All right, let's find out who the Hoover Institute. Oh, Hoover. Great. You know who? What Herbert Hoover is most famous for in his lifetime? Hoovervilles, right? Hoover camps. That was when people who were completely broke and destroyed economically were just forced to create little tent cities. All right, so what we've got here is a far right think tank again. Let's go back here. I saw a better description. Looked like a wiki. Yep, that looks like a wiki. Amazon. P off. The Hoover Institute on War, Revolution, and Peace is a conservative American public think tank and research institution located at Stanford University. It began as a library founded by Republicans and Stanford alumnus Herbert Hoover before he became president of the United States. Yeah, Hoover was one of the worst economic presidents we had. From what I recall, he did nothing to help and actually made the Depression worse. So, failed policies of the 20th century. So, that's where this guy is associating himself with.
Is so scary because almost no one is paying attention. Unless you're okay with your city going full Detroit and giving more of your hard-earned money to pay off someone else's debts.
People who worked are owed their benefit, including you when it's your turn, and if it was mismanaged, people who did their part shouldn't be punished. And it's not just states that do this. All right, let's look at corporation. What's it called? Pension liabilities? Corporate pension liabilities. Yes, thank you very much. Financial disclosures of 100 largest corporations define benefit are ranked highest to lowest by the value of their pensions. Private single owner defined benefit plans continue to make funding improvements, funded ratio. So this isn't like just governments. Companies have these problems too. And I think I needed to put unfunded here. Yeah. Yes. So of course they're going to frame this in terms of the government, and also Detroit is a completely different example than if you look around other parts of the country. So Detroit is code for Black people, right? Chicago as well. It's about urban, diverse centers. So of course white supremacists are going to try to demonize these areas.
So what is a public pension liability? A pension is a guaranteed lifetime payment to someone.
Yeah, we know. Oh my gosh. Wait, they really just assume no knowledge. Oh, look, more white people. Look at all these look at this white man getting what he's entitled to. Ooh, he just, he does his work and he opens up the post and there's his money. Because when he was a younger white man, he did what was right with his other, and his boss was a white man and his customer was a white man. Oh, look at all of this white. Another white man! Oh, the white supremacy.
Public sector. Among employees of the government, and they're eating city and states' budgets.
Okay, here's the thing. When Republicans refuse to fund these pensions by appropriately collecting enough in taxes to ensure that the obligations are met, that is not the problem of the municipality or the state. That is the problem of Republicans and their desire to shaft the workers by simply not keeping up with the payments that they are due. So this is not a problem with the state. This is a problem with fiscal mismanagement by people on the right who aren't levying and managing the tax base well enough to keep up with all of their obligations.
More and more money that could go to tax cuts or better services.
We're going to raise more money that could go to tax cuts. That is exactly it. Let's raise more money from the workers so we can give tax cuts to corporations. Like, what was that Wisconsin plant where they gave all that money away for an international business out of China, and now it's just going to completely rip off the taxpayers? Yeah, that's how Republicans think. Let's raise worker taxes so we can give it to the rich. Oh my God. Detroit going under have anything to do with pensions? Exactly. Detroit is code for brown people. And what we have in these Prager videos are all white men, because they are white supremacists. They are totally white supremacists. All right. Oh, I see Cogs in the chat. Hello there. Code for ghetto cities, working class of every race. Yeah, and they love to abandon the working class no matter what, but what they do is they use white resentment and white fear and white bigotry to label mismanagement as being something that non-white people do. What are you saying here, Mithril? Historically, public sector wages in the UK were slightly lower than private sector. The pensions were more generous. And then the Tories stopped it. Yeah. I mean, a lot of people do see that in the state employment. When you're a civil servant, you get, you'll get bonuses like you might in the private sector, and you might get steady wage, maybe 1% or 0.5%, depending on what your union negotiates. But you were promised a decent pension. And then Republicans just didn't fund that because they don't want to fund the working classes. They want to repurpose your tax dollars over to corporations so that there's no trickle-down effect, which we all know the tax cuts that were passed by Republicans last time did not spur investment. The money was used, the offshore money brought back was used for buybacks. The tax credits were used for stock buybacks. Companies just reinvested their own money into their own selves. And wages are not going up, even though we're having steady growth. Wages are not increasing. So we have low inflation, we have stagnant wages, and we have record corporate profits. And that's how they like it.
Is instead being shoveled aside to pay for these benefits.
What do you mean shoveled aside? Like they're wasting money on people's pensions that they've earned and count on so they don't end up in poverty and on more social benefits. Again, PragerU doesn't see the full cycle because they just want you to focus on like the sugar high of the moment, which is that money that we're spending on investing in people's pensions could be spent on tax cuts today. But the whole point of having a good pension system, of having Social Security, of setting these things up, is to deal with what was a massive problem with elderly poverty before FDR and Social Security. If you want to look at elderly poverty rates. I can't spell today. In the Depression. But this is why, one of the big moves to actually set up Social Security was to deal with the absolutely massive poverty rate amongst elderly people. I'm not going to the Cato Institute. Yeah. I think this might be senior living history, but anyway, if you want to look for it, yeah. Significantly from the Great Depression, so poverty rates were reduced until the 1970s, and income rose. Why? Because we had Social Security and we started inviting people live longer, and you can't just throw them out on the streets. And when Prager is aiming at this video at the young Republicans, they're not explaining the full cost of massive, widespread elderly poverty. I don't want old people freezing to death in their homes because they can't turn the heat up and it breaks and they can't afford to fix it. I don't know about you, but that's not how I want people to spend their golden years. Sorry.
Why is this happening? Over decades, politicians have promised trillions of dollars in pensions to government workers.
No, this was called negotiations under collective bargaining that they were owed as part of their package. So no, this isn't about politicians just giving billions away. This is about Republican and Democratic administrations negotiating with workers to establish a pension system. I used to be a state employee for the state of Wisconsin, so this is where I'm speaking from. right? Tommy Thompson, when he was governor of Wisconsin, he did not end private pensions for state employees. When the Republicans have run this, they did not end state pensions for firefighters and police officers who they needed their union endorsement. Believe me. So, more Prager lies, just as we know, but noted.
That includes police, firefighters, teachers, and city and state officials.
And you know what? Corporations do this too. Corporations also promise benefits. So if the state wants to be competitive and get talented people, they can't say, oh, we're going to pay you minimum wage with no benefits, because no one would do those jobs. So what they're complaining about is giving people a standard of living comparable to what they would get in the private sector. That's what they're complaining about. PragerU has no problem paying an overinflated in price on a product because of corporate mismanagement. Right, but they do resent, if the states haven't managed these things perfectly, the idea that, yeah, we have an obligation, a contractual obligation, and also a societal obligation to make sure people who are relying on those pensions don't end up in poverty because they were stolen out from underneath them.
You name a government job, and there's a pension associated with it.
Like that's a bad thing. Oh my gosh. Imagine that. A job that isn't going to leave you impoverished and on the streets and without any means of providing for your own medical care after you turn 65. Oh no! Looking at what you guys have to say here, I'll just pause a little bit. Public sector wages. Oh, we did that one. I'm being paid by George Soros. Yeah, everyone's getting paid by George Soros. Transactions don't exist in a bubble when that person is paid their pensions. Yeah, they use it to buy products and fund their wages. The taxpayers don't lose that money. Yes, that money, you're right, COG, is put right back into the economy. People who are on their retirements, they're not like hoarding their money to like put it into some investment. They're spending it on their mortgage. They're spending it on medicine. They're spending it on food. We're not talking about grandiose pensions here. We're talking about a few thousand a month. Firing stream trains with piles of billionaire cash would be a better use of money than letting billionaires have it. Oops. I didn't mean to go that far back, but sadly I did. Alright. Sad old white boys angry because they can't say the N-word in public. Yeah, I got a question. Somebody was asking me about Destiny. And I'm like, I don't think you can, in my opinion, you can't give yourself an N-word pass. And that seems to be what Destiny wanted to do. But, alright. Oh no, teachers. Yes, God forbid we pay teachers a living wage. They're just responsible for the future of the country and educating the next generation. That's not worth anything. But let's give tax breaks to megachurches. Let's not tax the second and third and fourth residents of pastors because they claim they're a religious exemption. That is a perfectly good use of taxation structures. But asking people to contribute to preventing the long-term poverty of themselves later on, that's terrible.
How big are these payments? Many pensions are quite large. In California, more than 62,000 retired public employees are receiving pensions of over $100,000 per year.
Well, that doesn't tell us anything. I mean, it literally does, other than saying, ooh, $100,000 a year, that's a lot. Not if you live in San Francisco. Not if you've been paying into it your entire life and it's been aggregating over 40 years. $100,000, honestly, if you've invested money over 40 years at a decent rate, I don't think $100,000 in a return is that unreasonable for 40 years worth of investment. Personally.
Sometimes it's even crazier.
Well, why? You can't even imagine. What is the average payout? Like, what if the average is, what do people need to live on per year? Right? If you think that to live comfortably, you need, in a place like, say Wisconsin, you need 50 or 60,000 a year. If you assume people will have a mortgage and insurance payments and other expenses as well. I mean, why is $100,000 ridiculous? What do they want it to be? They want people to live on $15,000 a year? $12,000 a year? $5,000 a year? When it's about corporate pay rates and stock bonuses and someone earning $1 million or multi-million dollars a year, that's fine. But to expect someone to have actually a decent income after they retire, that's somehow unreasonable?
A retired New York City sanitation worker is getting $285,000 per year.
Because they worked in New York City. Because they live in New York City. And if they spent 40 years paying into their retirement fund, showing up, doing their job in a very high level expense, high cost of living city, that's not unreasonable. So without context, again, no context, PragerU, you take that out and you put that in Ashland, Wisconsin, yeah, that might seem like a lot of money. But when rent, I mean, what is rent now for like a bedroom in New York? Something around $3,000, $4,000 a month? And somebody that I knew back in the early 2000s was living on Christopher Street, and he had a studio apartment, and it was $2,100 a month. So when your rent is $4,000 or $5,000 a month, yeah, you need $285,000 a year to maintain your standard of living. They want us to be shocked by this because they assume their viewers aren't thinking these things through.
A retired county administrator in California receives over $400,000 per year.
Wow, imagine that if she's got a master's degree or a PhD, and again, she was employed for decades at a time, and she's paid thousands of hundreds of $1,000s into her pension and her matching funds. Again, they want to act like these numbers. They pull them out, the most extreme ones. But they don't say what the education was, what the length of service was, any of that, what that person had paid into their own pension. Do they mention any of that? No. They treat this all like it's just some government largesse that Democrats throw at state employees to get their vote, as opposed to looking at it as part of the collective bargaining agreement that any other company that negotiated with the union would also have to provide. And we can also, they're not talking at all about the fiscal mismanagement on the private sector side, where companies have basically screwed over their employees and completely destroyed their economic futures by stealing their retirement funds. There's no corporate criticism in this video so far, and I doubt there ever will be.
Remember, these are guaranteed lifetime yearly payouts.
Again, they want us to be outraged at people making 6-figure salaries, but not at people making 7-figure or 8-figure salaries.
Now, we love our public employees.
Bish, please. No, you hate unions. You want to destroy unions. You want everything to be minimum wage, ideally, or less, to maximize profits for your friends. Honestly, they're looking for wage slavery. They don't love their public employees. They like their firefighters and their cops. Because they want someone to show up if their house is on fire, and they want someone to push around the people of color. That's it. That's all they need for their services. They can hire private security guards and live in gated communities, these people. So no, they don't love their public employees. If they love public employees, they would talk about what they've done over decades of service to the community that warrants their, that shows and explains the pensions that they deserve because they've earned them. They weren't gifts. They were earned.
They do vital work for our local communities and the wider society.
Oh, look at this. We got a woman who's a teacher because gender stereotypes. And we got this kind of guy, looks like he's got a tan, shall we say? Like a white guy with a tan, because let's face it, he's just like exactly like this white guy over here. In fact, they got the same eyes, but this guy's just he's been to Mexico. And then there's this white guy here. So we've got the white supremacist, the tanned to pale white supremacist spectrum on the screen right now.
They deserve competitive pay and retirement benefits. But currently, many cities are, in effect, paying for multiple public departments at the same time. The department that's working now, and because people are living longer, a generation or two of retirees.
Okay, so first you say these payments are ridiculous. Oh my gosh, someone's getting a 6-figure salary that they've earned for working for the city for 40 years and paying into their own pension funds, contributing to their own pension funds. Isn't that ridiculous? But we love them, but it's just too expensive. It's just too expensive to keep old people alive, you guys. I mean, old people should really just, figure out how to survive without an income, because we want to make sure that the tax rate is low for people in gated communities.
The system amounts to a self-perpetuating, corrupt merry-go-round.
How is it corrupt? Ah, see?
Public sector unions give large donations to candidates.
Like the police officers giving money to Republicans? Or firefighters giving money to Republicans to protect their pensions? Oh, no, we don't talk about that. It doesn't matter if the public, if there's contributions. These are separate from the collective bargaining agreements that are negotiated by authorities like cities and municipalities and states and corporations. Wow, PragerU really just assumes that people who are watching this are just completely ill-informed and uneducated.
Who are then responsible for negotiating how much of your money goes to public sector workers.
And there's no discussion here comparing, like, again, what the private sector does compared to the public sector when it comes to the pension provision or the mismanagement in the private sector. And this is like, Republicans get contributions from unions and Democrats get contributions from unions. But that doesn't have any that's not about what the negotiations are about. If you want to talk about, garbage.
These arrangements not only promise high salaries in the short term, but they also hide the payments that will be due down the road.
Okay, has anyone actually ever seen how often cost of living adjustments, get put out? I was a state employee for a decade, and we got steady small increases, but we didn't get huge amounts of pay. In fact, if anything, it was more profitable to go work in the public sector. So again, these are lies, and you can tell that they're lies because they're not providing any sources. They're not saying, oh, look at a teacher here at a charter school gets paid this much, but a teacher at a public school gets paid that much. You know why? Because public schools' teacher salaries are abysmal. There's a reason why Kamala Harris is talking about funding public school education salaries better. Public school teacher salary, right? Median salary is $59,000. Best paid made $75,000, while the lowest paid made $46,000. That's I can't figure out, what do you divide that in half? Is that like $23 an hour? Is that about right for the work that teachers do? That's not a ridiculous salary for somebody who has not only an undergraduate degree, but they also, in a lot of states, have to do continuing education and continue to earn credits and demonstrate their competency and keep up with the latest regulations. So we're talking about really highly trained professionals making less than $50,000 a year sometimes. Or if they're lucky, they might aspire to $60,000 a year, which divided by 12 is like $5,000 a month, and you figure taxes is going to be about half of that, so they maybe are taking home $3,000 a month. Wow. We really need to crack down on that. But don't look at all at the corporate salaries and the bonuses and the stock options and all that. No. What we really need to focus on are these teachers who are taking home an exorbitant $3,000 a year to pay their mortgage and feed and clothe their families and to plan for their own retirement. Because again, you can't just count on Social Security. You got to invest your own in that, maybe paying off student loan debts and a car payment if they need to drive around. Yeah, we really need to crack down on these people. These are the people who are creating the problems in the tax code.
When it will be much too late. The results are predictable. State and local governments across the U.S. openly admit to $1.4 trillion.
No citation. Citation needed. And also, what are the corporate unfunded pension liabilities? Let's put this in perspective. Let's do a little comparison of how the public and private sectors are managing themselves, and let's break it down. Like, how many southern broke-ass states are Republican states perfectly managed and they have zero pension liability? I doubt it.
Of unfunded pension liabilities, or $11,000 per household. Unfunded.
Oh, look at that white neighborhood that they've got there with more white people. Anyone else want to get their Klan robes out? Because I feel like, we just want to put the Klan robes on this guy and all of the characters in there. It's such a white world that they occupy.
It means dollars that have been promised, but there's no actual money in the bank.
Oh, there's money. It's called tax revenue. It just shouldn't be given out to corporations and used to cut other people's taxes, cut taxes for the wealthy. The taxes that are collected should go to pay for the things that are our obligations first, not foreign companies, not giving out tax credits to compete, to bring crappy jobs that are going to require food stamps and Medicaid when the people in the state are employed by these companies.
And that's just the amount they admit to.
Oh, now he's saying that they're lying. He just throws out the number of like 1.4 whatever without saying what percentage of overall liability, like how much of that in terms of the liability is unfunded. Is it 4%? Is it 40%? You know, if it was a bad number, they would have said it. And the fact that they're using 1.4 billion and they just stretched it out makes me think that it's actually a pretty small percentage of the total amount, and that they are just manipulating these numbers again to make them look big without context, just like they want people to be shocked that somebody in New York City with the highest cost, one of the highest cost of livings in the world, would have an less than $300,000 a year to live on in that expensive area after they retire.
The real number, according to the Federal Reserve, is much larger, around $4 trillion.
Again, citation needed. You can't just throw these numbers out and expect us to believe you. What are you doing? Oh, wait, they're credulous, and it's a faith-based, reactionary, authoritarian, white supremacist worldview, which anything that helps perpetuate the status quo is obviously true and doesn't even need to be looked up because a white guy said it, so you know.
Or $32,000 per household.
Well, you know what would be a much better way to fund that is let's exempt everybody who makes less than $1 million a year, and let's just put all of that burden on removing the kind of tax cuts that Trump and the Republicans instituted that had no economic benefit and has just blown up the deficit. So let's actually tax the people who aren't being taxed to make a contribution to our civilization, and protect the workers who, through no fault of their own, are doing what's right, saving up for their pensions, they're showing up for their jobs. They shouldn't be screwed over in order to give benefits to your friends, Mr. Hoover Institute dude.
Pensions have already thrown California cities like San Bernardino and Vallejo into bankruptcy.
Oh, let's talk about, like, I'm sure there are places in the South that have gone into bankruptcy or had problems with funding their teacher pay. But we only ever hear about California and New York in these PragerU videos. Maybe it's because they're bigoted jerks who, again, really want to attack anything that challenges their white supremacist status quo.
And the entire state of Illinois is teetering on the edge.
Ooh, again, Chicago, Obama, black people. See, this is the kind of thing you don't want to be where there aren't white people. Because white people can be, completely corrupt and sex offenders and, running human trafficking rings. Republicans are constantly being caught out for their corruption and their sexual, not even sexual, their criminal behavior, their sexual abuse, right?
So how do politicians get away with this? They use a time-tested political strategy. They lie.
It takes one to know one. Seriously. If this guy is associated with Stanford University, I don't know why. This is embarrassing. The lack of citation, the lack of scholarship, the lack of accuracy. This is all typical fascist propaganda. Shame on this guy, again, for helping press and push forward a white supremacist agenda.
They lie by saying they can pay for more and more generous pensions.
Let's, again, who said that? Citation needed. I want to see a politician from a southern state. Let's just see how bad this problem is, saying we want more generous pensions. I can't think of a single politician who has ever run on the platform of more generous state employee pensions. I can't. I've been doing this for way longer than a lot of people. And that is not a campaign pledge people run on. He's lying.
Not by collecting more taxes, but by making investments at a guaranteed 7.5% return.
Again, who said this? Who picked out this number? Where are you getting this information? The idea, lies. Lies, lies, lies.
But this is nonsense. It's less and less.
Yeah, you're right. This is nonsense. Nobody talks like this. And there's no reason for us to believe you because you haven't quoted a single person, actually a real person saying this. You're just alleging it. And the burden of proof is on PragerU, and they failed. Did PragerU just invent a political lie? Wow, PragerU does nothing but lie. So, they're just being consistent, actually.
less likely they'll meet their 7.5% goal over time.
I honestly don't even know who thinks that you can consistently manage a 7.5% investment goal unless you are going into high risk, high reward, volatile stocks. And I refuse to believe that that is how pensions manage themselves. By putting themselves, if you look at this is why mutual funds exist, right? To spread out risk. This guy is an idiot. He might be from the Hoover Institute, but this script and this information is nonsense.
And their investment behavior, pouring ever more funds into ever riskier investments, suggests they know it.
Again, citation needed. Who are these funds? Who manages these funds? Oh, wait. Private companies. Financial instruments run by private groups, right? The state does not put that information, that they don't manage that necessarily themselves. They buy things in the private sector, like money markets and other things, to invest in. So it's not the states, it's actually the corrupt financial sector that is managing these funds or mismanaging them.
But if they were to use a more realistic assessment, they'd need to raise taxes dramatically, and they love their jobs too much for that.
Oh, wait, I'm confused. Wait, is it that Democrats love to raise taxes? Or is it that they hate to raise taxes? Oh, no, are these Democrats promising, that they're going to raise taxes to fund these generous pensions? And they're going to raise taxes, or do they hate raising taxes? See, just like with fascists claiming that the enemy is both incredibly strong and incredibly weak, this is another example of fascist thinking, where Democrats love to raise taxes, but they are irresponsible and won't raise taxes. It's being a reactionary, pro-fascist, white supremacist, preserving status quo type person in America requires a lot of mental flexibility, shall we say.
We can, however, turn the odds in our favor with public pressure, discipline, and common sense.
Oh yes, the solution is always simple to these complex financial things. It just requires rolling back contributions to employees and stealing people's earned benefits to offset current tax cuts so that, they lie in the streets starving and destitute because Republicans don't actually care. Certainly someone from the Hoover Institute, which the historical legacy are Hoovervilles, is, I would say, suspiciously predisposed to being completely uncaring as to the suffering and death of the working class.
Here's what needs to happen.
Oh, white guy, lecture me. Come on, please. What we really need are solutions from people who have no credibility whatsoever.
First, we need state and local governments to report unfunded liabilities honestly.
Yeah, then we need to raise the taxes to meet the difference. And not on the workers, because they've already paid their part in. So we should really look at eliminating tax loopholes and other sources of revenue that won't create additional burdens on the consumer class, and instead look at capturing accurately the profits from the corporate side of things in order to make sure our societies are funded. I'm sure that's what he's going to say.
The real numbers, using the 2 to 3% yields that sound financial reporting would require.
Again, he hasn't actually demonstrated that this isn't happening or that this is a problem. He's just alleged that it happened, so I don't believe him.
No more pie in the sky stuff.
Which he hasn't demonstrated. Didn't quote a single person promising pie in the sky anything.
The truth should shock voters into demanding action.
Except the voters are the employees who are owed their pensions. Or they're their spouses who are owed their pensions. Or their sons or daughters who are a firefighter or a teacher or a city worker. So the reason why voters aren't demanding action is because this stuff is complicated, and the real source of the solution comes from corporate taxation, not from shafting the workers.
Second, we must phase out the guaranteed pension programs as quickly as possible.
See, this is it. This is what they really want to get at. What they want to make sure is that the state gets out of helping people provide for their pensions so that they push more people into the stock market so they can play with their money and lose it. This is about ending a benefit that is earned by employees and negotiated with the state in order to make sure that when they retire, they don't die in poverty. And there's nothing that people like Mr. Hoover Institute here hates more than the public sector actually providing a guarantee when the private sector could use that money to rip people off. That's what annoys them. Phase out the guaranteed pension programs as quick as possible. Screw workers over immediately so that we have mass elderly poverty at the same time we're dealing with climate crisis change in 50 years' time. That's forward thinking. Forward apocalyptic thinking.
And introduce 401k plans.
Yeah, 401k plans are in the private sector. This is, again, it's like with George Carlin. They want to take your retirement money and they want to steal it from you so they can give it to their rich friends. And that's precisely what he's saying here. We need to stop the state actually making sure people are get a pension they can count on and live on, and instead put them into the stock market where they take risk. This is what they're doing with public education, with post-secondary education, tertiary education, right? They're basically saying the state needs to get out of it, and we'll just put all of that debt on students, and then they can compete for jobs and hope that they can pay off their debts. This is evil. This is evil. What they're talking about here is the complete privatization of the pension system and making it reliant on the ups and downs of the stock market. And the whole point of having these kinds of programs with state institutions and city institutions and the federal government is to prevent that kind of risk. Because if you need to retire and the stock market crashes because Donald Trump is having a trade war in China, that is not your fault. The value of your entire retirement package shouldn't depend on the stock market. So again, this is just about stealing money for the workers, taking money that is being managed by the states and people who want to gamble with it on the stock market. That's what this is about, ultimately.
401k plans, if designed properly, can provide excellent retirement benefits.
Right. And you know what they say on the bottom of those ads? All right, it's been a long time since I lived in the States, but I assume that there are still advertisements for financial instruments that say, in the last 10 years, our fund went up 10%. And then they'll put in really small font at the bottom, prior results are no guarantee of future, income or future performance or earnings. 401k plans are gambling in the stock market. That's it. And it's just moving money that's managed by the state to being managed by, and also fees creamed off the top by private financial institutions. So this is really not about how the state or the cities or municipalities mismanage these funds. This is all about ending privatizing public education, privatizing tertiary education, privatizing the roads, privatizing the prisons, privatizing your pension. This is what the aim is. No government protection, all at the mercy of the market. And of course, when you say the market, it's not the free market, it's the rigged market. They want to sell you a 401k plan so they can play with your money, take stuff off the top, and then if you end up in a ditch somewhere with nothing, they don't care. They don't care. Whereas the state would care.
These plans also have the advantage of being portable. If you leave the public sector and go work in the private sector, you get to take your money with you.
I still have my public sector benefit. I've left Wisconsin. I still have my pension paid in there. I paid into the British system. I'll have to check when I retire if I get anything there. And I'm paying into the German pension system. If I leave the German pension system, I still get paid for what I got, I get paid out what I get paid in. So it's not like if you leave the public sector, suddenly you've lost your entire pension plan. I don't know what he's talking about here. Liar. This guy's a liar.
In other words, you don't have to be locked into a lifetime government job to receive retirement benefits.
Well, you don't have to do that now, you liar. What are you talking about?
Win-win.
No, not win-win. It's only win. It's win-lose. Win for the rich financial Wall Street types and lose for middle America. Impoverished middle America for the kinds of expensive people in the high-rises whose pensions are going to be 6 figures, but you're not going to be too upset about that if it comes at the cost of thousands of people's lives and quality of life.
Let's end the current structure of public sector pensions and
Let's end the guarantee for not being in poverty while you're retired, and we'll put everyone into a stock market that goes up and down and crashes, and as long as the people who are buying and selling the stocks and the mutual funds and the bonds are taking commissions and making money, who cares about everybody else? You know, if he wanted to be convincing, he could compare the performance of public plans to 401ks, but he hasn't.
move to a sustainable way of
It is not a sustainable way. It is a privatized way that puts people at the mercy of the market with no guarantee that if their pensions collapse in value the year before they need to retire, that there is going to be any way to get that money back. Where are the protections? You're only talking about the risks and the rewards, but you're not talking about any kind of protections. You know why? Because there are none in the private sector. And states have an obligation, and that's what they want to get rid of. Obligations to make sure that people who were the workers don't get screwed over.
compensating our public workforce. Save your city, save your state, save your money.
Bring down capitalism. Professor of whoreship. I think finance. Sorry, that's actually really, really insulting to people who are sex workers. That's why I said like sex worker, like whore. I don't want to call it like the sort of like, I will sell things because, you know, like for whatever money. That's like sex workers I would totally respect. Can we say that? Like, honestly, whoever you are, if you're making that contribution, whether hopefully it's a choice, no, you're not in an exploitation of it. But I mean, honestly, they're a job that like really sorts out some people's stuff. So I don't want to disrespect sex workers at all. This guy is like, sex workers I respect. Whores like him, I do not. Because he is about selling out other people into pain and misery for a paycheck. And I respect sex workers for the contributions they make to, like, making some people's lives better. This guy is a thief and a liar and a propagandist. And he's anti-worker and pro-poverty. So, read between the lines, buddy? Read between the lines this way. I have to make sure that I'm Sunday morning. I'm a sellout. I have no soul. As an atheist, of course, I don't think anyone has a soul, but... my. Okay, so what have you guys got to say in the chat? Guess why a stop was put to union control of pension funds? I don't know. The eternal appeal to common sense. Yeah, you guys know this. The video should be parodied by someone using Spacer Choice. I don't know what that is. There's no such thing as a free market. It's either regulated or monopoly. Oligopoly? Poly. Sorry, I can't say that. I totally got stumped on like 8 letters. Hoover's homunculus. Burn every business school to the ground. Sex workers are a spectacle. Free market financiers are. You're right. I completely agree with that. Question: when you retire, how much of the pension money comes from what is paid in rather than the taxpayer? I think it depends on... He's a class war profiteer. Thank you, Cassiopeia. That's perfect. I think it depends on your plan. So, I am putting in, for my pension, my employer here in Germany, I pay part of it. My employer pays part of it. And I think the state matches part of it. So, that was the second half of the comment. Go up one to see my actual point. All right. There's no such thing as a free market either. Yeah, I read that oligarchy forms, and then he's a class war profiteer. Okay. I think I got it. I think I got both. Anyway, anyone else can go read a Cassiopeia stuff. I'm trying to... I don't have the details of, like, my Wisconsin state pension when I worked for the state of Wisconsin for, like, 10 years. I don't quite remember the proportions because that was a long time ago because I'm old. But people do pay into a pension plan, and then, of course, in the States, it's quite common for people to have a 401k. I opened up a Roth IRA, like, in the 90s, and it's just been sat there for the last too many years, and I have no idea what the value is. I'll just go look at it when I'm retired, because if I touch it before then, I get huge penalties. However, it's not the case that somehow, people aren't making contributions to their pensions, and that's also left out. He makes it sound like it's this gift you get for free. Going back, union control. Oh, union control of pension funds, as well as using them for strike pay and housing project for workers. Sometimes unions would buy shares in the company or get workers on the board. Oh, I think that's good. I think I like the Works Council. I actually think that one good way it would be, well, all right, can I give you guys an idea here and tell me what you think of this, because I haven't heard this mentioned before, but it seems to me that when it comes to Marxism, what they want to do is the core idea for a lot of the Marxist solutions is to nationalize capital. And I think the problem should come from I think we need to nationalize labor. I think all citizens should be considered basically like employed by the federal government, and then the federal government is like a hiring agency that demands certain wages for access to its workers to the private sector. And I think that should be I think that would be a much better way of trying to get Russell control, would be to actually control labor and not capital. Nationalize the workers so that they get, like, if you get a job at Starbucks, or you get a job at an office, or you get a job in a travel agency, there is a minimum wage with certain benefits, time off, parental leave. And if you don't want workers, then you just you don't hire anyone. But if you want workers, then you have to give them these benefits. Anyway, Cassiopeia, it's really hard for me to follow like one thing broken up to multiple threads, so yeah. It's better if you just have it in one section, because if other people are writing, it's hard for me to find everything all the way down. So what's Social Security like in the US? I don't know, I don't collect it, but from my understanding, you can either retire at 62 and a half, at which point you get paid out a lower rate over the course of your lifetime, or if you delay until you're 65 or maybe older, you get a slightly higher bit of money, but of course you have 3 years of not getting paid. So they're kind of playing the odds that you'll die and you won't cost as much money, because these 3 years apparently make a big difference. Let's see, Social Security, you have to, last time I checked, you have to work for 40 consecutive quarters, or 40 quarters in total. So you have to basically work for 10 years over the course of your lifetime to get Social Security, and it's based on your last wage. So I worked enough because I got my first job at 15 and a half, and I've been unemployed for all of 3 months in my entire life. So I paid into the system, and then word character, or character limit. Yeah, I get that, guys. So I'm because my wage was so long ago, I probably won't make as much as someone who stayed in the States and continued to get their wages, but I will get Social Security when I retire, based on that income back from when I lived on the States. Well, guys, I think we're coming to the end of the show. It feels like we're coming to the end of the show. 1:30. Yeah, and we started at noon. About an hour and a half. That seems about right. I'm gonna go, and I've got some video editing to do today for work, actually. But if you guys have questions in the chat, what I'll do is I'll go ahead and switch. Yeah, if you have any final questions for me, you can put them into the chat now. Otherwise, I'm going to start wrapping this up. Let's see. I'm trying to think. No idea when the next happy hour is. I'm going to see what I can do about scheduling the Weekend Winters through the live stream, and actually getting it to work and having the right stream key and applying it and everything else. We got there in the end today. It's a little bit frustrating, but we got there. Cassiopeia says, at the moment I like anarcho-syndicalist ideas. Yeah, I was actually just watching Monty Python and the Holy Grail last night, which is the first time I'd ever heard that phrase. When I was growing up, having democratic unions take control of workplace instead of bosses or investors. I'm not keen on the federal government idea yet. Well, I mean, I think it's the problem, especially with exploitation of the workers, is that they don't have a strong position to bargain against capitalists, and the federal government, just like negotiating Medicare prices, would have the ability to basically own it and make sure that things are. Now, if you don't like capitalism, I missed out yours. Okay, I'll look. Social Security in the U.S. Oh, I see it there. I'll get to you 250. Yeah, if you want to just destroy capitalism, obviously that's not a solution for you. So, but I think it's an interesting proposal, like nationalizing labor as opposed to capital. I haven't heard that. Now maybe that's just because I'm not not into Marxism. I'm not an economic theorist. I look at like issues of gender and voting behavior. If you're getting your pension from a private sector company, what happens if the company goes under? You might lose your pension. Lots of people get screwed over by losing their pensions. So let's take a quick look at that. Pension. And I can't type today. Lost pensions. No, let's see. How can you lose your pension? Let's see. Company is going bankrupt. What about my pension? Recently, American Airlines, so this is from 2019, American Airlines filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy, leaving many wonder what happens to their pensions, whether you're an employee of theirs or any other company that offers a pension. Here's what you need to know. Apparently fortunately it's not as bad as most people think maybe. There are safeguards in the United States to prevent you from losing your pension plan. Every defined benefit retirement plan is insured at least to a point. Most will receive all, at least most, of their company pension, even if your company goes bankrupt. Most will receive at least most. So some people ain't getting nothing. However, in some cases, it may not be every penny you expect. When a company goes bankrupt and it goes into bankruptcy and things like that. So, yeah, I mean, moving things to the private sector will not guarantee you a pension. It doesn't solve the problem. It just privatizes the problem. And that's what they're really after in these cases. All right. Okay, Mithril. Catch you later. Thanks for stopping by. Am I right in guessing that this was a massive issue in 2008? I do remember, I think was it Enron pensions? Enron was a huge, huge, huge problem. I don't know if the Wall Street Journal is going to be behind a paywall. Yep, here, let's take a look at this. So let's look at what happened with Enron in 2001. The rapid decline of the Enron Corporation has devastated its employees' retirement plan, which was heavy with the company stock. See, this is what he doesn't mention. He doesn't mention the Enron example. And it has infuriated workers who were prohibited from changing their investments as the stock plunged. Through the 401k retirement plan, employers chose to put much of their savings in their own company's share, Enron shares, and the company made contributions in company stocks as well. But around the time Enron disclosed serious financial problems last month, the company froze the assets in the plan because of an administrative change. For several weeks, as the stocks lost much of its value, workers stood by helpless as their retirement savings evaporated. They were not allowed to switch the investments at all, even though the plan had far less risky choices. The unfortunate timing caps a year of pain for Enron workers. At the end of last year, the 401k plan had $2.1 billion in assets. More than half was invested in Enron, an energy conglomerate. Since then, the stock has lost 94% of its value. Gee, Mr. Hoover Institute didn't mention this problem, did he? Quote, we had some married couples who had both worked who had lost as much as $800,000 or $900,000, said Steve Lacey, an emergency repair dispatcher for Portland General. It pretty much wiped out every employee's savings plan. So, was that risk mentioned by Mr. Hoover Institute? No, it wasn't. So, privatization is not the answer. Just to be clear. Oh, you guys didn't see that. Sorry. Let me swap the screen here so I can show you what I was. No, wrong one. There we go. Ah, dang it. I think it's gone already. Anyway, I read that out to you. Sorry. Enron. I scrolled down here. Yeah, you guys didn't see this. Apologies. This is from the New York Times. So hopefully you'll be able to see that. That was my source. No, you can't see that either. Nope, that's not it either. Oh, I know, it's on the wrong page. Sorry, I've got my I got different windows for different pages. Okay, now you should be able to see this. Boom! There you go. This was the 2001 article that I was reading from New York Times. Employee retirement plan is a victim as Enron tumbles. So, put that in your pipe and smoke it, Mr. Hoover Institute. Okay. Yeah, end of the show. I said I was going to end before, but just like the tradition in Wisconsin, it's about you say you're going to leave, and then like 20 minutes later, you're still not out the door. And, well, I suppose, guys, it's time to go. I should go home, make some supper, watch the Packers. That's me doing a Fargo, my Wisconsin voice. All right, guys, thank you so much for stopping by. I'm trying to think if there's anything else before the show ends. That's an interesting location for very... Sorry, it's just funny. I've got things all over the place in the screen. It will come back next week. I have no reason to think I won't do a show next Sunday. And we will pick another PragerU video. We will disappear down the rabbit hole of debunking pro-status quo, white supremacist, patriarchal, pro-corporate, or corrupted capitalist structures. Dismantle it and have some coffee. So, I think what I say now is that I've been Christy, and actually, I can move the screen. Don't need to see that anymore. Where's me? Big. Me big. No, that's not me big. To camera. There we go. So, I've been Christy. You've been awesome. We got there in the end with the OBS shenanigans, but I'm working it out. Thanks for being my therapist, listening to me scream at the first 20 minutes of the show. And also thank you for your contributions and your comments and ideas as we go through the PragerU videos too. You guys really make some good points. So, I've been Christy. You've been awesome. Have a great afternoon, and we will see you randomly whenever Kevin and I do a happy hour or here next week, Sunday. So, catch you later. Bye.